And welcome to the very impressive and very challenging 20-turn 3.43-mile Circuit of the Americas just outside Austin, Texas. I'm Jason Pridmore. Thanks for joining us again for another edition of MotoAmerica Raceline. As always, joining me on the show is MotoAmerica fan, betting expert, and world traveler Ben Wilson, straight from Scotland. It's hot here in Texas, Ben, but it's good seeing you again.
Hey, likewise, Jason. I'm back just in time for our final two race weekends of the year, and how exciting will this show be today? Not only do we get Superbikes, Super Sports, and King of the Baggers, but for us as bettors, what's most exciting is that the odds makers, especially for Superbike, as we're going to start out with, have sort of just thrown their hands up in the air. Like, they don't know what to do with this Bobby Fong stretch. 5 wins in the last 6 races. I'm so glad we've helped bettors win. He's cashed at over 7-1, at over 8-1 here the last couple race weekends. He's still pretty good plus money, so it makes it fascinating from that angle. Now that you've got this 3-horse race with still 2 race weekends to go and a lot of points still up for grabs.
A lot of points up for grabs, and like you say, this is a fierce points battle. You can see Fong leads by 27 points over 3 guys. Beaubier has done well here in the past. The SDK won here last year. He'll be on that Suzuki. But you're right, this battle at the championship can really sway how the odds are going to work this weekend. And so when we get ready to pull these things up, as you look at the championship standings, you know, the guys that you got to look at, Cam Beaubier, I think, Ben, you could say, hasn't had his best year. He's only sitting 17 points back. And after we saw Herrin at Mid-Ohio last, we saw him picking himself up off the ground in what was a very off weekend for Josh. He's going to be coming here to COTA to try to redeem himself and try to get himself back into this championship. Only 27 points back. And remember, we still have 5 races left, as we'll do 2 here at COTA and 3 in Jersey in a couple of weeks.
And what's amazing to think about, Jason, is we'll take a look at the futures odds. Going into VIR, Josh Herrin was a minus 910 favorite to win the championship. Just to put that into context, the implied odds on that happening would be 90% if you're talking about a guy at minus 900. Well, now Herrin, not only is he out of the race, the championship standing lead, he's not even second, he's third. And on the future side of things, he's dipped all the way to near 4-1 with Bobby Fong having this incredible stretch. Fong now minus 263. We talked about putting on a little sprinkle of Cam Beaubier going into last race weekend, Jason, when he was near 3.5-1. Now Beaubier has been shortened a little bit, still just over 2-1, and still you got to argue value to be had, especially when you're talking about a guy in Cam Beaubier who's been so good at this track, and it seems like finally starting to get his form on the right track after his first win since Atlanta last time out.
Yeah, absolutely no question. Cam Beaubier, we got him at the right number at the last round. I think that was a good move for bettors out there if they did get him at that 3-1 number. I still feel like he's going to be the guy that really people are going to be looking at to try to beat. He's very strong here. When we go to Jersey, it can be anybody's race for the championship at that point. So getting him where we got him and the way the results turned out at the last round, I think was smart. Like you say, he's still at 2-1. We're going to start looking at some betting odds for race 1 here in Superbike at COTA to kind of see where these guys are. And as you're going to look at it here, Herrin's still a betting favorite with Beaubier. Fong there at 3-1, again, is a guy that you look at and you think, okay, how's things going here for Bobby Fong? You know, Ben, he's just got, it just came out this week, he's actually going to go ride 2 rounds of World Superbike at the end of the year after the season's over. So he's going to be highly motivated still to wrap up this championship, do what he can. I think if he goes here 3-1, those are pretty good numbers, I think. But Beaubier at 2-1 here, I think he's still the guy.
To me, it's Beaubier and Fong the guys to bet on. Herrin, as good as he had been throughout the season, he's now also coming off a crash and he suffered a right leg injury in that last race, Jason. So that's the big question to me. If you've got some sort of injury concern to begin with and you're still the betting favorite, it's just automatically kind of a stay away from a betting perspective. The fact that Fong, we talked about it last race, you would have thought for a guy who had won 4 straight races and was in the 9-1, 8-1, 7-1 range would get drastically cut down. Well, he's finally been cut down, but I'm kind of surprised it's not even more. He's still, I'd say, pretty good value there at over 3-1.
Again, I totally agree with you. Now, this track here, predominantly when you start looking at what the Ducati and the BMW are with the straightaways here, those are going to be the bikes that are going to be obviously very fast down these straights. The Yamaha is a much more flowing type of bike for certain tracks. This place is much more stop and go, Ben. That said, Yamaha has a good history here. They've won here in the past. And I'll tell you right now, Richard Stamboli with attack, he's going to keep his foot on that throttle the whole way to try to help Bobby take this championship home.
And remember, Beaubier won 2 of the 3 races when we had 3 last year. Just to give you some idea, this is really helpful, and our production team did a great job putting this together. As far as how the odds have flowed now for the last 3 race weekends, At Laguna, you see how far back Bobby Fong was. He was fourth in the standings, but was over 9-1. And you just see how, Jason, it's been a gradual chop down in the odds for Fong. I would argue it's come too late from the odds makers. They should have adjusted way earlier. But this is a fascinating look at how these odds have shifted over the last couple months.
Well, the odds makers, yes, for our bettors, if they've been listening to what you and I have been talking about, Ben, they've been able to cash in on the Bobby Fong success. And how lucky are we to have a championship like this where we still have these top three guys locked into the way it are, and the odds continue to change every single week. It's been a really fun ride to watch this.
You are totally right on that, and it's also led us into some great head-to-head betting matchups as well. Here's one that I'm really surprised at how these odds got spiked. I know Sean Dillon Kelly, as you talked about, Jason, has the great experience here. These guys were minus 130 to SDK on the head-to-head last race weekend. Sean Dillon Kelly leads the head-to-head 8-7 on the season, but that seemed like a little aggressive of a move to me, Jason, getting a rider as good as Richie Escalante now well over 2-1 in a head-to-head.
I mean, look, Richie Escalante, he is an incredible rider. This number here is too big on SDK for the simple reason this number is going to be inflated, Ben, because he won here last year. He's on a different bike, on a different team. He's got a very competitive teammate. So, again, you got to remember, you got to finish these races as well. SDK and Richie Escalante, in this case here, if I had to put anything on either one, I'm definitely not going to lay that big number on SDK. I might put a little something on Escalante with the hopes that he's going to be able to find some pace against his teammate this weekend.
Yeah, purely from a numbers basis, definitely a play on Escalante. Bobby Fong and Jake Gagne will be our last head-to-head. We have Josh Herrin, Cam Beaubier. This is, as we've talked about a lot, JP, you'd rather just play the rider to win outright. However, it's now with Fong in the mix, you're winning so many of these recent races, you would not be turned away, I suppose, by us, Jason, if you wanted to say, yeah, let me just take one of these two riders.
This is literally, if Cam Beaubier is one of your favorite riders or Josh Herrin's one of your favorite riders, you could put a little bit of something on them or on the individual rider of your choice. Again, Ben and I, he's taught me enough. I'm staying away from it with you.
Yep. No doubt. Bobby Fong now in his matchup against Jake Gagne. We're finally starting to see attacks here on Fong, Jason. He was minus 113 in this head-to-head last race. Now he's minus 152 against Gagne.
And currently, with the current history with this year specifically, Bobby Fong has had Jake's number, unfortunately, for the most part for the year. You got to remember, Jake Gagne's only 57 points out of this championship, man.
I know.
We talked about these three riders in front. If they trip up, we've got another multi-superbike champion in Jake Gagne who could come through. We just got to hope that with all of the braking here, this is where the strength in Jake's right arm could pose a problem. I'm hoping that's not the case. But again, Bobby Fong would be the better favorite there, the betting favorite.
Let's move on to the Super Sport classification. This is, instead of a three-man race, it's really been a two-man race here. This rivalry continues. Matthew Skoltz, PJ Jacobsen. How fun will this be to watch, Jason? Just 7 points decide the two riders with a couple race weekends to go.
Yeah, and it continued again this morning, Ben. In first practice here at COTA, it was that guy, Matthew Skoltz, who did lead the way this morning over P.J. Jacobsen and Cam Peterson, who you see sitting fourth there. Blake Davis, I think, was fifth this morning. So, again, it's coming down to those two title rivals that we had last year. Same two guys again this year. Matthew's on a bit of a roll right now, as you know, and so he's just going to keep trying to put the hammer down and lead on his track Yamaha.
I think we're both satisfied, Jason, as far as futures go. We talked about betting Skoltz when he was near plus 250. That was 4 race weekends ago. That looks pretty good now as he's minus 220 in the futures markets. P.J. Jacobsen minus 103. Both are minus money just because the books put a tax now as we get later into the year. So probably not worth anything as far as an ad, right, as far as the portfolio goes. And you're having to pay the books that sort of tax. Both guys minus money. It's one of those things. If you'd taken a shot earlier, you're probably better off just letting that thing ride now.
1,000,000% right. We got that better number, didn't we, 4 rounds ago when we saw Matthew have a couple little problems there. He fell behind in the points. All the betting money was going to P.J. Jacobsen. We grabbed that plus number, and as you get a chance here now to look at Race 1 Super Sport, it's going to be your 2 championship contenders there in first and second place. Look, 7-1 on Cam Peterson. He hasn't won, and he's dying to get that HSBK team a win. 7-1, Ben, looks a little bit big. Also, you see Jake Lewis there, a winner from last year. This morning, I believe he was in the top 10. We don't know if he's still battling some injuries, but what are your thoughts when you look at these numbers initially?
Well, it's funny you bring up Cam Peterson. We had him 138-1 last week, and he finished his second both races. I mean, I was ready to just cancel my Scotland trip, Jason, fly out to Mid-Ohio and just start partying with you if Peterson had gotten that thing home for us. Look, and the odds makers have been totally off. Wrong on Peterson all year. There were times they didn't even list him on the odds, and he was finishing in the podium. So he's got to be somebody on your card there, even still at over 7-1. Let's take a look at some of the head-to-heads we've got as well, and that leads right into Cam Peterson. Now, he is a big favorite in this one here, minus 143 against Jake Lewis. Does own the head-to-head, though, Jason, 10-3-1 over this year.
Well, yeah, you look at that, but you got to think Jake Lewis, too, coming off an injury. Don't know how much he's actually still, if he's injured or not. So this is more of a inside job where you kind of know that one rider's healthy, one rider's been hurt. You got to respect the fact that Jake won here last year. I'm probably laying off it, but if I had to sprinkle anything, I'd probably put a little something on Cam because he seems like the rider in form right now who's just dying for a win.
Certainly so. Lewis just 7 points last 6 races. Has not started 4 of those with that injury you talked about. Meanwhile, the Matthew Skoltz PJ Jacobsen matchup, both guys juiced to minus money, which means sort of an auto stay away for me. Skoltz was around plus 117 to actually win the race. Probably the better bet to make if you like Mr. Skoltz.
Yeah, this is, again, it's one of those things. If you love PJ, you're going to bet him. If you love Matthew, you're going to bet him. This is one that we would stay away from for sure.
All right, let's go to King of the Baggers. Even though the championship is basically decided here, Kyle Wyman was just a dominant campaign, up nearly 100 points on Loris Baz right now. Still a lot to fight for. We've got some good individual battles here, Jason, going down to the wire.
We really do, and I think this is where we've got to look at these numbers as far as championship goes and what we are expecting from the weekend. You look at a 97-point lead. Kyle Wyman can basically do whatever he wants. If he chooses to go out and try to win the race this weekend, he can. If he has a mistake in the first race, no big deal. He's got a huge points lead. He can win it in the second race. For Herfoss and Baz has really not been a contender for the last, couple rounds that we've done baggers. It's really odd that we haven't seen Loris closer to the front. Troy Herfoss on the other side, we know that Troy can win trying to go slow if he wants to. We've seen that this weekend. So when you look at these race 1 winning odds, the big question is, does Kyle want to go out and try to win it at minus 154? For my money, I'm saying if I'm Kyle Wyman, he wants to win this championship, and he's going to do whatever he can in the first race to do it. At plus 300 or 3-1 on Troy Herfoss, I think I'm going to take a little bit of Troy Herfoss money here with the idea that Kyle's going to play it maybe a little bit safe unless he feels completely comfortable. Your next bet would be Troy Herfoss, wouldn't it?
It's a great point to make. I think one thing also to consider, these are for race 1, so it's a very high probability that Kyle Wyman goes out, clinches the championship in race 1. Not to say there will be like champagne covering his bike in race 2, but this is a situation where I'd want to wait. Let's wait for race 2. You're probably going to get some really good odds. It might not shift a whole lot. Herfoss would also be a really good bet in that situation as well. And remember, Jason, as we go to the head-to-heads, we've had a couple of outlier results this year as far as the King of the Baggers goes, including Hayden Gillen, who got the race win last week. He's minus 116. He's moved up to 5th now in the race championship standings ahead of James Rispoli, who sits in 6th.
Yeah, I stay away from this one because at 14-1, Hayden Gillen was 4th on our projected list in the race 1. I'd probably put something on there. If that Vance Hines Harley has some speed, I think Hayden Gillen could be another guy that could be in for the win. I'd rather do that 14-1 money than a head-to-head against Rispoli.
Yep, I am with you. Head-to-heads to me this week, Loris Baz, who you mentioned, has been pretty uncompetitive over the last couple of race weeks. Minus 115 against Rocco Landers, who's 7th in the championship. That's very telling, right, that a guy 7th is favored over a guy in 2nd in the season-long point standing. Yeah,
Rocco's had a little bit of bad luck. We saw him on the ground at Mid-Ohio through no fault of his own at the last round. I think this is about right. Rocco hasn't had the greatest year. I'm staying away from this as well because you never know. Loris Baz raced here at MotoGP and all those other things. We're getting towards the end of the year, too. These guys want jobs for the next year.
And our final head-to-head, Kyle Wyman, Troy Herfoss. Again, I'm looking to isolate race 2. If it's the same head-to-head as well, and you're getting Herfoss nearly 2-1.
Yeah.
Look, last race when we talked about this, Jason, these two were minus 110 in the head-to-head. It's not that more anyway.
Yeah, this is literally no disrespect to Kyle, but you're taking Troy in this thing if you had a choice, but you're going to take him overall to win the race at 3-1. That's going to be where the better money is going to be. And like to your point, Ben, everything is going to be a huge tell based off of race 1. Once we see that race 1 come out, whether this championship is wrapped up or not in race 1, I think these odds are going to change around a little bit for us.
That is the fascinating part of it because race 1 to race 2, there's not a ton of time. You've got you got the overnight here to see how the odds adjust, but just have your finger on the pulse there as a bettor. And I'm honestly, it's sad that we're almost to the end here. Penultimate race weekend, Jason. I just wonder how this track is going to play. Seems like it's already baking hot over there, and it's only going to get hotter as the weekend continues. Big test here physically for these riders.
It's a huge test physically because of the way the track is laid out, Ben. A lot of first gear turns here on the Superbike, and even probably on some of the Supersport bikes. But you're coming from these high speeds into very high, hard braking areas. Those hard braking areas, Ben, too, you can make a lot of mistakes there. Some of these races can be won or lost in the slowest corners that we really do see on our whole calendar. So with the heat, the length of the track and all that, it's going to be an interesting weekend.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Cash some more big tickets, Jason. And if you want to cash some tickets, check out nxtbets.com/play-MA. This has been our Austin edition of the MotoAmerica Race Line. For Jason Pridmore, I'm Ben Wilson. We'll see you for one final show next time from New Jersey.